Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and thank you for joining me in our journey to hope. It is my desire through this podcast to bring you information about how to discover, sustain, or perhaps regain hope. In this episode, we'll be talking with Taraus Fuller. Taraus has what I consider one of the most challenging jobs, but also a very rewarding job, as he serves as the chaplain at the Prattville campus of the Montgomery Cancer Center. Hello, Taraus.
Hello, Dave.
Wasn't it a great day today?
Yes, it was.
Folks, at the Cancer Center, when we have a cancer patient that has completed their regimen of chemo and their treatments are over, we have what we call a bell ringing ceremony. We have a brass bell mounted on the side of the wall. And so today we had a bell ringing ceremony for a lady that survived breast cancer. But not only was it her bell ringing day, it was her birthday. That was just great. And so it was fun to do that. By the way, the anniversary of my bell ringing is October 27th.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to, it'll be 1 year of being cancer free. So I got to ring that bell. I sure did. All right. Well, I stated that your position is our chaplain at the Cancer Center, but I'd like you to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, Dave. Originally from South Florida, the Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. I was born and raised there in the South Florida area, Fort Lauderdale, Florida area. Went to high school there, also went to college in the state of Florida, went to seminary in the state of Florida. I'm married, have two daughters in high school, and I've been in Alabama for over 7 years now.
Oh, okay. Okay. We'll claim you now. 7 years. We own you.
I have some tenure.
So when you when Alabama plays Florida, we have some conflict going on there.
Yes, we do.
That's okay. It's all fun. Well, I tease you a little bit about your name, Taraus. That's not a first name that I'm familiar with hearing a lot. So what's the history of that name?
Well, the history of my name is the fact that my mother named me after my father's zodiac sign.
Okay.
But when I was born and it was time for her to write my name on the birth certificate, she had a writer's block. So instead of spelling it like the zodiac sign, she spelled it differently from the zodiac sign. So when I got older and I realized that I thought my name was misspelled, I told her that I wanted her to change my birth certificate to have the right spelling. But she told me the story that when I was born, that she had writer's block, and that's the way she spelled it at the time, because that's all that she could think of at that moment, how to spell it. So once she explained that to me, I decided, well, I'm not going to have her change my birth certificate because the spelling is very unique.
It is. Well, you're a unique individual in a very good way, and so that name matches you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
And it is an unusual name. All right. Well, I think most of us have an image in our minds about what a chaplain is and what a chaplain does. And so I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of a chaplain looks like. And let me ask you a question real quick about that. What does it take to be a chaplain?
Well, to serve as a chaplain at the Cancer Center, which is a facility of Baptist Health, you have to have a Master of Divinity degree or equivalent.
Okay.
And you have to have 4 units of CPE called Clinical Pastoral Education. And usually in order to obtain those 4 units of clinical pastoral education, you have to go through a 1-year residency program, whether it's at a hospital, a hospice facility, or some other type of facility where you're getting hands-on clinical training as well as educational training. Okay. And the educational piece is when you have reading assignments, you have writing assignments, you're reflecting on your experiences in the clinical setting and how can you sharpen your skills, how can you improve. If you had another opportunity to do a do-over, what would you do differently if you had an opportunity to do it again based upon your encounter with that patient, that family member, or a particular staff member.
Okay, so you get to be your own case study.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All
there's
right.
a lot of reflection and introspection,
Okay.
for yourself, and you learn more, you learn more about yourself also in that process.
Well, you're very qualified for the field, not just in your education, but I've enjoyed watching you. I can't help it, but I enjoy watching all of our staff as they interact with our patients. And you bring, and I'm going to get to the question in a minute, but you bring a sense of quietness to that patient. I watched you today. You were, I forgot whose area you were in. I think it may have been Debbie's area. It was the gentleman that was back in the corner, and you were speaking with him for a little bit. But I've seen you sit by folks and talk with them, and that's just an incredible thing to watch and be a part of that. So, okay, let's get back to the question. Tell us what the day in the life of a chaplain looks like.
Well, first and foremost, no day is the same.
Well, yeah.
In the life of chaplaincy, you never know what you're going to encounter on that particular day. So you have to be open. You have to be willing to have your schedule interrupted. You have to be willing to adapt quickly depending on what's going on with that patient or that family member or staff member, because each day is unique, each day is different, and you have to be willing to kind of just allow your schedule to be interrupted and just go with the flow of the traffic and do your best to try to meet the need of that individual wherever they are, at that moment. It can be a situation in which a patient is very disappointed because they've went through some lab work and the lab results were not favorable, and as a result of the lab work not being favorable, they're disappointed. Sometimes they may become tearful, and the fact that they're disappointed or tearful, they may not be able to undergo their treatment for that day. And that kind of sets them back, due to the fact that they're not able to do their treatment because they were looking forward to the treatment to help them to progress and to get better. So when a situation comes up like that, you kind of have to be I guess a terminology that I'm going to use that I read yesterday from another clinical chaplain in Tampa, Florida. He used this phrase, a grief catcher. You have to be as a chaplain, you're like a grief catcher, and your interactions with patients or families can cause you to go from mental health situation to a crisis situation or to a grief situation. And as a chaplain, you're kind of that grief catcher where you're, sometimes you may have this juggling act where you're dealing with a crisis here, you're dealing with a grief here, you're dealing with a loss over here, and you have to just find that way to try to meet that person, where they are, at that moment.
Okay, I went through some of that myself. As I was in my year, in June of that year of treatment, I thought that was when my treatment was going to be finished. We were working toward that, and I was excited on, oh man, this is going to be my last day of treatment, and only to come to find out, no, you've got to go all the way through October. So now felt like I was starting all over again. You were not on staff at that time. The chaplain wasn't on duty that day, so Brentley became my grief catcher. I like that term, grief catcher. And she was my nurse, and she's just such an incredible person. But it was a tearful moment, disappointment, and but again, I know you're the chaplain and you're that focal point for that sort of thing. But all of us on staff serve in that capacity. But we rely on you a lot, and we appreciate you doing it. Now, back to the point though about the day in the life. No day is the same. You're right. Yeah. So you're there. You interact with the patients on different levels. We're finding people at what's truly, for some of them, first time in their life that they've had their hope challenged at that level. And so what do you do? The theme of this podcast, as I stated in my intro, was the idea about helping people discover, sustain, or rediscover their hope or regain hope. How do you help a person with that in your capacity?
Well, Dave, I try to provide a calming and comforting presence
Yeah.
to each patient, staff, or family member when I'm in their vicinity.
I'm glad you said family member. Yes, that's a big part of it as well. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Please
that's
go
good.
ahead.
That's good. Yeah, but yeah, I try to provide that calming and comforting presence to each individual, facilitating a conversation, but not dominating the conversation. Facilitate the conversation and allowing the individual to drive the conversation, providing a safe space for that person to feel valued, to feel welcome, to feel heard, to let them know that at that moment, that I'm right there for them, at that point of their journey as they go through their process. As the chaplain there at the cancer center, as I'm interacting with patients, they often say, "I know you have other people to see," and I say, "Yes, I do, but I'm with you right now."
That's right.
So I'm focusing on you.
You are my patient.
So
that's
you're,
right.
That's right. You're my patient right now, and I'm focusing on you
Yes.
while I'm in your company. So I try to provide that calming and comforting presence, not being judgmental, not being condemning, but being comforting to them, to provide some type of sense of hope or inspiration to them while they're going through their journey of their treatment regimen.
Yeah. When I got off duty today, one of my heroes came on duty as a volunteer, Jane.
Yes.
Jane was the volunteer that met me the first time I received treatment and took me back to the area. And she told me, I told her, I said, "You're treating me like I'm your only patient." And she said, "Well, to me, you are." And I told her later in a discussion, I said, "You knew exactly what to say." By the way, I made a mistake the other day, and I felt so bad about it. I was talking with a patient, and unconsciously I looked at my watch, and she said, "Oh, I'm keeping you." And I said, No, you're not. I just saw something happen, and it reminded me about what time it was. I says, "But I'm yours." I think I'm gonna stop wearing my watch. I felt so bad about that because, like you said, I'm there for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take that watch off. All right. Anything else about that, though? Sorry.
Also with helping folks discover, sustain, or regain hope is just providing that ministry of presence.
Yeah.
Just letting them know that I am there for you, even if there's no concern or any issues that you have at this moment. Just reminding them that when you're here in the future, I'm still available for you in the future when you come back to the cancer center for your next treatment session.
Yeah. And they sometimes, yes, they're receiving their professional treatment, medical treatment, but sometimes that's what they need. They just need that person to listen to them and share with them what they're going through, that journey. And that's just so important.
Yeah, because community is vital, and some people don't have a support system. Some of them don't have a family support system, don't have a faith support system or friend support system. So sometime as the chaplain or you as the volunteer or the nurse or the social worker, we may be their only support system, while they're undergoing their treatment.
Yeah, you made the comment that you're there for the patient. The patient is first always. Right. But close behind that patient is that caregiver. I love seeing caregivers at the clinic because they're just so valuable for that person. And then sometimes they're there by themselves, and so we get to step into that role as we can, as appropriate. So and I'm always glad to do it.
And even with the caregiver or the family member there, I offer my services or my help to them as well, because being a caregiver is very vital, it's very crucial, and sometimes caregivers neglect their well-being. Sometimes they neglect their self-care because they're, adamant about looking, after the person that's undergoing the treatment. So, I invite, them to, that I'm here for them also, while they're there at the facility, with the patient also. And sometimes, the caregiver or that family member needs an outlet also to
Yes.
be able to share or to be, just to voice their concerns. And sometimes, as the chaplain, sometimes you're that voice of calmness, you're that voice of hope, you're that voice of inspiration, and sometimes you're just a sounding board, for that individual, just to let them vent or just get out whatever it is that they need to get out at that moment. Because sometimes, things are just bottled up inside, and they just need to let it out.
Well, as I said, this is perhaps the most significant challenge to their hope, and a lot of folks just, I mean, who expects this? How do you train to deal with that situation as a person myself happening to me? Sometimes, and I absolutely love our patients. I get to know them and appreciate them and understand what they're going through. Some of our patients, we know, are ending their life.
Yes.
They're in the last stages of it. We're treating them for comfort. It has a unique set of challenges, but it's not something that we run from. We're there for that too. Can you speak to that just a little bit? Helping a person come to grips with their mortality, I guess, is what I'm talking about there.
Yeah, particularly for a patient where they know that, it's getting close.
Yeah.
That mortality is becoming more of a reality.
Yeah.
And with that, they're experiencing what's called anticipatory grief.
Okay.
Anticipatory grief basically means that they are experiencing a future loss. They are grieving a future loss, even though it hasn't happened yet. But anticipatory grief means that, it's ahead of them, and they realize it's ahead of them, and they know it's coming, so they start to grieve.
Okay.
Before it actually
Grieving a loss before
right,
that loss is actually
happens.
Yeah.
And that can happen a lot with patients that they know that their days are fewer or getting less, so they start to grieve, even though it hasn't happened, but they start grieving because they may have some regrets. They may wish they have done certain things. Maybe they've had certain things on their bucket list, and now they know that my final days are ahead. Now I've not been able to accomplish those things on my bucket list. Grieving about how will my family
Okay.
move on,
Sure.
without me. If they have young kids that are not grown, still in school or whatever, who will take care of my children? How will my children move forward, without me? If they have elderly or aging parents or family members, how will that impact, their loved ones or their friends? So they start to explore and think about a whole lot of things at that moment that can really push them in a state of depression. And and sometimes as the chaplain, you're there to journey with them and allow them to talk out their concerns or whatever it is on their heart and their mind, and you're just journeying along with them. You're facilitating the conversation, but you're not dominating
Right.
the conversation, and you're being that listening ear. You have that you're practicing reflective listening or active listening, and
Okay.
and you're listening to what they're saying, and then you're starting to repeat things back to them of what they're saying, so that they truly understand what it is that they're saying. So when patients are at those final moments, they start grieving, and they can end up feeling depressed. Some of them could be down and out because their final days ahead of them, and they're wrestling with a sense of purpose or a sense of meaning. Was my life meaningful? Has my life been meaningful?
Okay.
I'm still trying to discover the purpose of my life, and now I'm about to check out here on earth. And so and there could be conflicts between their beliefs and the treatment regimen that they're undergoing. It could be relationship problems with their spouse or with their children. It can
Okay.
be unresolved guilt.
Oh, wow.
That they're dealing with,
Mm.
weird family dynamics, in which maybe the parent hasn't spoken to the child in so many years. Now, my final days are ahead. So how, do I have time to reconcile, with my child or my loved one or my friend, even though it may have been 20 or 30 years since we've seen each other or talked to someone, but now, that their final days are coming, closer and closer to not being here. A lot of stuff is coming to the surface, and now they're starting to think about and wondering, how they can make things better or if they could change anything.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, some of those things I understand clearly. You pointed out a few things that I hadn't even thought about, but yeah, they are there. I tell people when I talk with them and work with them that hope is alive, even in that terminal situation.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is alive until we give it up, and so I keep encouraging them not to give up hope. But sometimes we have to help them change what they had hoped for
Mm-hmm.
to something else that they're hoping for. And in your explanation there, okay, I haven't accomplished this. I have not resolved this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm likely not going to have time to fully resolve it or to resolve it. And so we have to help them find that hope.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm wanting people to understand that true and lasting hope is found in our Lord Jesus Christ, and ultimately that's where I would want to guide anybody to. But sometimes you can't get there because there's a whole lot of hurdles between here and there, and we have to deal with very real world things in their life. Something else too, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. On top of all of that, mental stress and
Mm-hmm.
all that they're going through, they still have to deal with the treatment
Yes.
and the sometimes painful effects of that treatment and the changes that it's bringing upon their quality of life. And we have to help them with that as well.
Yeah, because all of that plays a vital role in their physical health.
Overall, absolutely.
In the totality of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So, the depression, the stress,
Yeah.
the anxiety,
Yeah.
all that plays a role in
Yeah.
the physical aspect, of your treatment.
Yeah, and who gets hit with that the hardest at first is that nurse.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Brentley one day. I was having a stressful day getting into work, and I knew there was a wreck on the interstate, and she was having a stressful time getting into work.
Mm-hmm.
She gets there, and the EKG machine wasn't working, the second one wasn't working, and they finally got the third one to working, and she just treated it like this is another day. We're pressing on. And I asked her, I said, Brentley, they don't let you have a bad day, do they? And she said, oh no, when I have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day, and we do not want that.
Yeah.
And so that was just there's so many folks there at the cancer center that help out. But
Mm-hmm.
again, you're the one sometimes that has to bear the brunt of a lot of things that people are facing. Okay, some other thoughts.
As a chaplain, you have to be open and willing to talk to patients, family members, caregivers, even staff about anything, and meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And just because their values or beliefs may be different
Mm-hmm.
from yours,
Mm-hmm.
you still have to be open and receptive.
Sure.
To meet them
And respectful to that
and be
person as
respectful,
well. Absolutely.
and be respectful,
Absolutely.
and to meet them where they are, even if our cultural and religious beliefs are totally
Right.
different. We still have to be respectful to one another. And personally, Dave, My theology of pastoral care is basically that I believe that everyone is created in the image of God. Therefore, I believe that everyone should be treated with respect and care.
Right.
Do unto
That's
others
right.
as you want them to do unto you.
Yes.
And be compassionate.
I'm not going to demonstrate the love and compassion of our Lord if I'm throwing up barriers and hurdles with that person.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to be able to guide them to our Lord or show them the Lord. I don't go in and say, well, what religion are you? Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go over. No, we don't even go there.
Right.
We don't go there.
Yeah, because as a chaplain, I'm not there to proselytize anyone about my beliefs or my faith, but at the same time, if the question is posed about my beliefs, then I'm open to share with them about my beliefs, about the hope that I have and my faith and stuff like that. And then I invite them, to share with me about what their faith tradition is and what their beliefs are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And to have a meaningful and wholesome conversation about that.
If I want them to listen to me, I am going to listen to them. I asked Lisa Rose, our volunteer coordinator, when I was going through orientation with her. I said, Lisa, I want to pray for people. Is it okay if I have a notebook where I'll write a person's name down and so I can remember for my prayer list? And she said, do you want to see mine? We have to protect the patient's privacy, absolutely. But that was a part of it too. And then she says, it's okay to pray with a patient and to pray for a patient, and it's okay to share your faith with them. But as you said, share.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean dominate. We want to listen to folks. And okay, that's great. All right. Any other thoughts?
Sure.
You brought some wonderful things out.
Maybe a couple more things.
Sure.
I just want to throw out there that smiling does not mean that they're okay.
Oh.
And laughing does not mean that they are not sad.
Mm-hmm.
Smiling doesn't mean they are okay, and laughing does not mean they are not sad.
So they might be putting up a false front.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to try to dig a little deeper if they allow you to.
Yeah.
Dig a little deeper to see what's really going on behind that smile or behind that laugh, because sometimes it can be a decoy to try to cover up what's really going on, because I realize that you don't have to know someone's exact pain to know pain, because our pain is not the same. And even though our pain is not the same, we can still try to minister and journey along with people to reach them where they are at that moment.
Yeah, we understand what they're going through. We sympathize. I remember in my counseling training years ago, they say, stay away from the phrase, I know what you're experiencing.
Right.
Because we don't truly. Now, obviously we have the patient's record and we know the kind of disease they're fighting and the manifestations of that, but not the person. How they're handling it.
Yeah, you're right. You have to stay away from those statements. I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
I know how you feel. No, I really don't know how you feel.
No, I don't.
I really don't understand, how you're feeling right now. But but I'm here to support you. I'm here to empathize with you.
And I'll ask them, well, explain to me what you're thinking, or tell me how you're feeling about that. Those kinds of things.
Yeah,
to get them to vocalize that.
Yeah, because all of our pain is different.
Yeah.
Our pain is unique. Our loss is not the same. Our grief, is not the same. Our problems, are not the same.
Right.
So that's, when you have to put on that heart of compassion and gentleness as you approach each individual on a day-by-day basis. And you have to take each person differently, because no one's the same.
it's an exciting environment in which to work because you are dealing with people and helping people.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's a very challenging, exciting, and I don't mean that in a, that may not be the best word to say, exciting. I just, there's something about the satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
of helping folks and being there for folks. And like I mentioned earlier, when we see somebody ringing that bell, you know, that's a victory.
It is celebration.
Yeah. And I love that we line the hallway, and it's a joyous moment in that person's life.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And I have experienced it, and it is great.
Hey, for instance, if a patient says with me, "Hey, I met with the doctor earlier, and things are looking great. My tumor is shrinking," you know, I get excited. Hey, let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Yeah. That's what I like to call a moon pie Monday. No matter the day of the week. Okay. Any other thoughts? I mean, you really appreciate what you're saying. You're giving us a good insight. And by the way, not just in how you fulfill your role as a chaplain, but that helps us as we deal with people in our lives that may be going through it, friends we know, people from church or neighbors or whoever, family members. Helps us understand what they're going through and to help them.
Yeah. And I think being a good chaplain, in my perspective, is about being yourself.
Okay.
Being confident and comfortable with who you are, even though you come across people from different walks of life, different experiences, different cultures. Be confident and comfortable with who you are, and be the best you that you can be, and realize that nobody can beat you being you.
You know, not got in trouble. I got called down today. When I get excited, I get a little bit louder.
Okay.
And Mary came over and said, "Shh." We were celebrating over in the corner, and so you and I approach things a little bit different. You have a little bit more of a calming effect. I have a little bit more of an out front effect. So, but anyway, it's great. Okay, wonderful. All right. Anything else, my brother?
I think that's about it, Dave.
Okay. Well, Taraus, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of this podcast, but thank you for what you do.
Thank you,
truly, truly appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's a joy to see how you offer others that love and compassion of our Lord, because that's truly, again, I tell people we're in the hope business. We're helping them rediscover, sustain it, whatever the case may be. So, okay, well, thank you very much. I look forward, really, I do look forward to continuing to work with you at the clinic. Okay. Well, friends, thank you for joining me together as we journey to hope. I invite you to follow this podcast so you can continue to gain insights into not only our journey to hope, but how we can help others in their journey. I invite you to contact me if you have any questions or comments, or you wish to share with me something you've experienced in your journey to hope. My email is ourjourneytohope@gmail.com. That's ourjourney and the number 2, hope@gmail.com. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Again, thank you for listening. And until our next episode, remember, we give all glory to God our Father.